Hey everyone, Austin here again with a quick play. Today we're going to be playing through Super C for the NES. This is a port of Super Contra from arcades to NES. The arcade version was a very, very difficult game, hardcore memorizer. The NES version, while it's still challenging for some people, it's not anywhere close to as difficult as the arcade game. Much like the first Contra as well, it's also been heavily elongated compared to the arcade game. So while the arcade game takes about 10 to 15 minutes to go through, the NES version, on a really smooth run, will probably take you at least a half an hour. So there's a lot of content here for the kind of game that it is. It does actually loop as well, so you can play it a second time after beating the game, and it does actually raise the difficulty up, which is kind of interesting. I think it only does that once. I don't think it gets harder and harder and harder. But yeah, so there is some incentive to play it again for those of you guys that like a higher challenge. But yeah, it's a pretty comfy ride. I've talked to some people recently, and they were going on about how this is such a difficult game, and it's way harder than the first Contra, and blah, 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 blah. Some of these people are people that can beat Battletoads, so it doesn't make any logical sense to me. But rest assured, if you haven't played this in a very long time, and you remember this being super difficult, trust me when I say you've probably played a lot of other games since that are way, 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 way harder. And this is actually a pretty comfortable ride when you know what you're doing. Now, just like with any game that requires reflexes, eye-hand coordination, there are going to be things that catch you off guard, like those guards in the background that just kind of pop out of nowhere and they shoot. They're only at a handful of spots in the game, but knowing where those are goes a long way for, proper survival. So, once you learn things like that, where to avoid enemies like that, the game is, like I said, it's a pretty comfy ride. It's an awesome ride. If you like 8-bit games and you've never played this before, this is a must-play. I think this is one of the best action games, one of the best 8-bit action games ever made. It plays extremely well, just like the first Contra. It's got great graphics. I think visuals that are even better than the first Contra, and it's got fantastic music as well, and it's super fun. It's also 2 players at the same time. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have friends to play this with, but some of you guys do, and it's great for that, too. So, but yeah, before we jump into it, for anybody new to my channel that's just stumbling on this video, which is probably only a small handful of you, because these old NES games are just not popular anymore, this is my quick play series, where I basically just fire up a game, and we see what we can do with it. Now, Super C is a game I probably go through at least once a year, like a lot of NES games, actually. The NES is one of my most played consoles consistently, because a lot of the games are nice and challenging, they're satisfying to go through, and they're short, and so I can play through a lot of different ones each year, and, feel like I've accomplished a lot while not sinking hundreds of hours into, like, a single RPG or something like that. So, but yeah, this is my quick play series. We basically just fire up the game, see what we can do, and these are done completely live on the spot. These are fully improvised. These are not scripted. These are not pre-recorded. So what you are about to see here is me just talking about the game and playing it on the fly. So this is actually kind of what my channel revolves around, always has, probably always will. So if you like this sort of thing, kick back, relax, and hopefully you enjoy the playthrough. So with that, let's go ahead and hit the start button and just jump right into it. Now, this game does have a Konami code that you can use, and to get some extra lives from the beginning. I always tell people not to use those codes, though. We used them as kids, and, yeah, it was cool. Hey, we got 10 to 30 lives, or whatever it is. The amount that you'd actually get would vary from Konami game to Konami game. Or the effect the code had would actually vary from game to game. But in the first Contra, it was about 30 lives that you would get. And, that's cool. It's good, actually, for trying to learn the level layouts, if you're actually going to learn them. But they kind of de-incentivize you from trying. Like actually learning from your mistakes, actually trying to dodge things, actually kind of caring about what you're doing, and then you don't really get better at the game. So I always kind of tell people not to use those codes. Because, you want to be able to learn from your mistakes. There needs to be something at stake as you're playing the game, and having a bazillion lives at your disposal kind of goes against that. You're less likely to actually try and care about what you're doing. So yeah. Anyway, this is our first level. It's a pretty straightforward level, as are most levels, if not all levels in this game. Both NES Contra games do not have the most complex level design, but Super C arguably has even more simplistic level design than the first Contra does. I think it's even more straightforward. Now, Super Contra Arcade is quite challenging, actually. It's very, very challenging, and there is a lot more going on. So even though the level design is very straightforward, there is so much going on that there's a lot to juggle. You don't really have nearly as much of that in the NES version of this game. Nice, we got it in one cycle. What happens is that chopper goes all the way to the right-hand side of the screen, and then its hatch comes down, and enemies drop out of it. And then it kind of like goes back, its weak spot becomes available again. I think when the hatch is dropped, it goes so far off screen that the weak spot is obfuscated, so you can't actually do any damage to it. You have to hit that glowing weak spot that opens up. But just like the arcade game, we've got top-down sections. Now, you know, when this game came out back in the day, a lot of us were like, oh man, I liked the behind-the-back sections from the first Contra. But the fact of the matter is, Super Contra Arcade had the same type of thing. Instead of doing like these pseudo 3D behind-the-back sections, they did top-down segments, which actually ended up working quite well for these Contra games. I think top-down stuff works really well in the run-and-gun format. But a lot of us as kids, like, never played the arcade version of this. You know, it was not a very common arcade game. The first Contra, you know, we had access to it here and there in arcades, so we kind of got to see how the arcade version compared to the NES game. But Super Contra, personally in particular, I had never seen a Super Contra arcade cabinet. It is much less common, I think, than the first Contra, at least in the United States, from my experience. And based on, you know, what who I've heard from growing up from that time period, not a lot of reports of this game out in the wild. So, the arcade game, I mean. NES version was actually quite popular. Very popular game. Very, very common game. Very good game. But yeah, we were like, why didn't they do the 3D sections? You know, it was so cool. But I really enjoy these top-down sections, too. Let's go ahead and get off to the side here. So one thing you can do is actually kind of try to get behind that green guy. But if you stay all the way down here, he will eventually touch the bottom of the screen, and you're pretty much guaranteed to lose a life. So once you see him coming down too far, you want to start moving up diagonally to either the left or the right, whichever spot is open. More open, I should say. Yep, this level has a lot of turrets. Like I had mentioned in the very beginning of the video, it's got these gunners that pop out from behind. It's also got gunners in the trees. That R power-up actually allows you to... There's a turret that doesn't want to come out. This is interesting. Okay, let me just jump over it. I wonder if that was a glitch. I've never seen that before. That's very interesting. Okay. But yeah, you have to watch out for turrets here. You've got to watch out for guys in the trees. You got to watch out for this guy right here. And what I actually learned on a previous playthrough is that as that turret is exploding, its hitbox is actually still active. So you don't want to try to run through it as it's exploding. You will still die. Now, a fun little mechanic here, you can actually go underwater, and it makes you invincible. So enemies and bullets will actually just go right through you. Really nice mechanic. That is quality game design. I love it. It's so simple, but it works so well. And we used to actually use it as a, you know, a good strategy back in the day as kids. We used to just duck underwater all the time just to let enemies go past us. Now I'm an adult, and I want to kill stuff, so I want to shoot as many enemies as possible. So I oftentimes forget that the underwater mechanic even works, or is a thing. Alright, this is our first boss in this level. And what it does is it stops and then it shoots. And it's just kind of rinse and repeat. It seems to basically move and then stop like 2 or 3 times on average, and then shoot. There we go. Just take your time on this boss. Alright, now we're gonna have falling rocks. What I want to do is just sort of take my time here. And this should be the barrier power-up. I assume it stands for barrier. We used to call it bionic back in the day, but I don't know if that's actually the power-up name. So I just call it B, or barrier. Now, you don't want to be on these rocks as they fall down, because they move so quickly downwards that you will actually become airborne. And when you become airborne accidentally in this game, you have no control over your character. You cannot jump. So you want to make sure you're basically on solid ground that whole time through that whole section. And on this part, we've got these purple turrets. That was actually really risky going into that corner there. You'd rather stay closer to the middle. That way you have a lot more wiggle room for dodging these bullets. But I used my shoot-'em-up skills to sort of jump and position my character to go through the bullets, to pass through safely. Very risky, though. Now, one thing you gotta remember about the Contra games on NES is that when you jump, your character is super tiny. So you can actually use that to your advantage and try to, like, squeeze your way through bullet patterns that you know, might be a lot more difficult if you're standing up on the ground. Like, your hitbox, I think, is like double the size on the ground, so... Or at least it feels that way. I don't know if it actually is. For all I know, your legs might not actually have a hitbox. They probably do. But most bullets do actually hit you at chest height. Since you are fighting a lot of humanoid enemies, and if they do shoot, they generally shoot, again, more towards your waist. That's actually interesting. And now I'm really curious what your character's hitbox size actually is. So those bubbles, I think some people actually kind of struggle with those. And I think the reason is that they don't realize that the bubbles will actually despawn. It only takes about, 4 or 5 seconds, and then they stop coming in, as long as you've destroyed them. So the big trick with that bubble hallway in the beginning is to just take your time. Destroy the bubbles, wait until they stop coming in, and then move ahead. Duck here. Would have been safer if I just kind of came over here to the left-hand side. Let's go ahead and grab that. Look at how slow these bullets are. Super Contra, or Super C on NES, has very, very slow bullets. More slow bullets. And slow-moving turrets. Now, if you've never played any of the Contras on NES, and you decide to actually fire them up, give them a try, the big rule of thumb in these games is, if you want them to be as easy as possible, you want to grab the spread shot and hold on to the spread shot. That is key. The games definitely do become a lot more difficult if you die and you're stuck with just your rifle. Now, your rifle is not, like, the worst thing ever. Maybe relative to spread shot, it is, but in terms of, other run-and-gun video games and things like that, it's actually pretty decent. It does decent damage. You can mash the button quickly and do rapid damage very quickly. It is still a very useful weapon. You can still fire it in all 8 directions. You just have to be a lot more skillful with it. Whereas spread, you can just sort of like spray and pray. So what happens here is it starts with lasers from the right to the left, and then it goes back from left to right. Ooh, that was dumb on my part. That was really dumb on my part. So what I wanted to do is actually try to like carve out a centerpiece where I could just sit in the middle of it without having to worry about lasers, landing on top of me. But I got really greedy there. As you destroy the turrets, it actually does start to speed up, and that's exactly what happened. Is I destroyed a bunch of the turrets so quickly that I didn't realize it was actually speeding up. And so I was misjudging, you know, my movement capabilities there, or my dodging capabilities on that fight. Let's go ahead and grab this machine gun. Machine gun, at the very least, it makes your life a little bit easier because you no longer have to mash the attack button. Now, this is going to be tricky. Let's go ahead and just try to attack this guy. Now, this is actually a gameplay mechanic that was changed from Contra 1 to Contra 2 on NES. Is that when you're on slopes in this game, which actually Contra on NES did not have. Now that I think about it, Contra 1 did not have slopes like this. It had really good layering of platforms and things like that, like on the you know, the snowy level and the waterfall level, for instance. But every platform in the original NES Contra was actually flat. I completely forgot about that. So what happens in this is when you aim diagonally on one of these platforms, your bullets go even with the platform. Basically to make it so it's just really easy to actually hit the enemies that are running down the sloped platforms. But, you know, there was that turret higher up on the screen, and I couldn't actually hit the turret because, you know, when you're locked onto these slopes, your bullets go along with the slopes. Of course, spread shot would have actually helped that. Also, one thing I like to do here is just keep jumping, push the screen up as high as possible, because I have in the past had these purple rocks just fall right on top of my head. So I intentionally manipulate the screen to trigger the rocks falling. That way I don't jump, push the screen up, and then hit them as I try to go across the gap. We are going to have some ground turrets here as well. Here's our first one. Obviously, watch out for these guys. Watch out for the guys coming from behind. Alright, and boss time. Pretty cool level. I love the verticality in these NES Contra games. It works really well for these games, too. Nice, got it. First try. Alright, I think we have ourselves another top-down level. Or actually, yep, it's our next top-down level. So in the arcade game, this would actually be, I think, our final level. But in the NES version, it is not. We have a couple more levels after this. I'm gonna go ahead and try to get rid of these mouths as I see them. It's gonna be a tricky section. These guys seem to be completely random. I don't think there's any rhythm or rhyme to them. And the second you touch them, you die. Alright, at about the halfway point now. Now, if you get stuck here with just the laser, this section admittedly can be pretty problematic. This is a pretty busy section, especially by NES standards. Not a lot of NES games got this busy. Alright, we go through this barrier, and then we're at the boss itself. And what I want to do is kind of stay towards the middle of the screen, but then move to the right or the left just slightly. The reason is that he has projectiles that come down directly in the center. And if you're too far off to the left or right, his bullets will actually try to track you. But if you just hug his bullet pattern, the vertical one that goes straight down the middle, they will not move, and you just get free shots on him. There are a lot of ways to manipulate enemies and bosses in these old 8-bit games. And this is a perfect example of that. If you want to just go ahead and hit him in the middle, I can get rid of his little snake helper if I want. It's not really necessary, but that's it. He is done. Now, he's a lot easier in the NES game. In the arcade game, his eyeballs are actually weak. You can actually destroy both of his eyeballs. And he throws these like little Grim Reaper dudes at you. And they are very tanky. They take a lot of damage. And the snake that comes out is actually a lot more difficult to deal with as well. Alright, so I've got my spread shot still. I've got my rapid, which makes my spread shot go across the screen a lot faster, which is nice. couple of nice little tricks we can do here. Which I will explain in a moment. Alright, so we need... Whoa there! That was interesting. Didn't expect 3 of those guys to come down. But what I would like to do is get rid of these eggs. Very easy with the spread shot. If you end up dying and having to do this section, there is a laser, which also helps you cut through these a lot faster, which is nice. I think there's also a machine gun. But right here, we can actually try to attack these eggs from above. So there we go. We do want to try to take these guys out as quickly as possible because, as you can see, if you've seen the Alien films before, they spit out these sort of face-hugger-like enemies. Also, this guy down here, we can see it. It's not animating, but its hitbox is active. Now it's no longer active because I've technically killed it. The sprite is still there, but it is actually dead. It will not do anything to you. A couple of these down here, though, it is kind of trial and error. You've got to be on top of them right away, otherwise you'll likely lose a life. And boss time. So we go for the middle first, and then we just go for his mouth. He basically shoots out these 3-way projectiles, and if I just taper my shot lightly like this, I will pretty much be guaranteed to hit those projectiles that come out. I can just take my sweet time here and hope I don't mess it up. Or I can try to shoot as fast as possible, which actually seems to work a little bit better sometimes. There we go. Alright, I think we're on to our final stage now, Area 8. Area 8 is probably one of the more challenging levels in the game, but it's also still not that difficult, in my opinion. The biggest thing you have to worry about is the fast aliens that constantly come out from the sides, which you're probably used to by this point in the playthrough, because that's pretty much most of the enemies in the game. Dealing with constantly respawning enemies. But you also have these mouth turrets in the walls. You can tell that they're active because their teeth sort of clench together. And I don't want to grab that spread shot. The reason is that it actually downgrades your rapid ability. So my shot rate, my shot firing rate will actually slow down if I try to grab it. And the next thing I have to worry about is these big mouth turrets. They actually shoot really, really fast. Those are like the fastest enemy projectiles in the whole game. So that is definitely a memorize or die scenario. You know, just because a game requires you to memorize certain parts doesn't make it really, 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 really difficult, as some people would say. Anything with eye-hand coordination requirements, fast action, you know, basically lots of skill-based elements, they're going to require some level of memorization. Some, like Super Contra, the arcade game, are hardcore memorizers. Others, like this, you know, you can improvise a lot more. Like, I haven't played this game in probably close to a year. Ooh, that was close. That almost pushed me into the pit. Yet, I'm doing just fine. It's not like I've got everything memorized and committed to memory like crazy. It's just that, you know, the difficulty is such where, like, improvisation actually will take you a long way in this game. Just being able to react and play smart is more than enough to get through this game. There are a small handful of sections in the game where, like, the hardcore memorization really goes a long way, but that's it. So, yeah. Alright, my tip for this part right here, don't touch that wall. I am pretty sure it will kill you. Don't quote me on that, but don't risk it either. This part right here will absolutely kill you. So you don't want to touch this guy as it's coming up. You don't want to touch the purple rocks either. But once it's active, you want to get into the corner here and just shoot diagonally like crazy. Nice. And sort of Ninja Gaiden style, we can actually get up top here. Pretty fun. Wow, and that playthrough took us less than 25 minutes. That's actually kind of crazy. I always thought it would take me like 30 to 40 minutes to get through this game. But yeah, that is Super Contra. What I am going to do... I can't remember if I've done this in a previous Let's Play of the game. But I think I'm going to drop back into the first level here with my probably close to 10 lives. And lose a life, revert back to the rifle, and see if I can get through this game with just the rifle. Just to give ourselves an extra challenge. So we'll go ahead and let the credits roll out here, and we'll go ahead and try to do another run. So, yeah, it's only 25 minutes. My last playthrough was double that, so hey. Let's go ahead and put another 25 minutes into this. Alright, Area 1, 12 lives. We've got 12 chances, guys. It's like I've used the Konami code. Alright, so let's go ahead and run into an enemy. Now, one caveat here, or one thing I will do, is I will pick up the R power-ups, just to allow my my projectile to go across the screen a little bit faster, which will be welcome. Interestingly, you can actually see the enemy bullets are a little bit faster now. Not significantly faster. Well, at least by modern, you know, arcade action game standards. But still faster. Also, I think there are more grenades that pop out from these objects in the back. There's gonna be a lot of button mashing on this playthrough. Yep, there we go. There's more. Gotta go ahead and let the power-up canisters just kind of go off screen. That makes my life a little bit easier. Whew, alright. Yeah, this is a little more intense, but then again, I am not using the spread shot. And using some more tricks to my advantage, like being able to shoot downwards like that. Taking advantage of the fact that enemies actually move a little bit faster than I do. So I can actually, you know, move forward, aim downwards in the air, and actually still end up hitting them with my bullets. Alright, I'm gonna sit down here. I'm gonna do this phase. Trying to stay more towards the middle because we still have all these enemies that are, you know, coming out from the sides. And I was jumping and shooting diagonally specifically because I wasn't sure if other enemies were going to keep coming from the sides, and I didn't want to be too close to the left-hand side of the screen. Just sitting on the ground, holding up and just shooting vertically completely would have been much easier on me, but I didn't really trust it that much. Alright, we're going to skip the machine gun power-up. Now this is actually kind of awkward, so I'm going to let it despawn. It only sits there for a few seconds. But look at this, I think the R power-up actually not just allowed my bullets to go across the screen faster, but I think they actually go farther across the screen. I don't remember my normal rifle shot going so far on this level. Alright, let's come on down here, shoot straight up. Shoot these guys diagonally. It's a lot harder if you're going just head to head. Just taking my time with these enemies. Not rushing it. That's actually really important in this game, is not rushing. It's a skill that is, I think, underappreciated in these old action games, is restraint and discipline. Very, very important in these old Contra games in particular. More specifically, like the, you know, your NES Contra games. The Contra games that would come after, not counting Contra Force, it wasn't even meant to be a Contra game. So it doesn't even feel like a Contra game. You know, like Contra 3, the Alien Wars, Contra Hardcore, Contra Shattered Soldier, etc., etc. They were more hardcore memorizers. They weren't games that you would improvise as you would play. Like, you had to do things like a very specific way, otherwise you were dead. That's how those games operated. And that's fine, but it's very different in these games. So, like, restraint actually goes, I think, a longer way in these games than the later Contras. Later Contras, it's basically you do the one thing or you're dead. That's it. In these, you've got lots of different ways to, you know, handle each different situation you're thrown into. But constantly, like, rushing forward bullishly is not the wisest decision in these games, unless, like, you really, 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 really know what you're doing. It's actually pretty fun going through this game again with just the rifle. And again, I don't remember if I've actually done this before on my channel. I know I did it with the first Contra. I don't remember if I did it with this one. And look at that, that turret was supposed to come up, but it never did on that previous playthrough. So that's interesting, it did just glitch out. I wonder if we almost, like, despawned it in a way. I'm gonna stay a little bit farther back this time. Oh, I knew I was gonna die. That was my fault. I got way too close. I thought I could try to dodge through the bullets, but obviously that did not work out too well. Alright, use our ducking trick here. It's actually coming in handy on this second loop. Well, this second rifle-only loop. I keep forgetting that I am just playing rifle only, and so that is definitely making things a little more challenging on me. But I like it. I like a good challenge. I like a good, healthy, fair challenge. This is fair. You know, the game is totally doable with just your pea shooter, basically. There are some games where if you don't have an upgrade, you're basically toast. Like the original Gradius is a great example. Like if you don't have any weapon upgrades or options, you're done. That you are not going to get through the game. But this you can. So it gives you just different ways to play the game, which is really, really fun. And he seems like he's basically the same. Nothing special here. I was expecting much faster projectiles. Maybe he fires more rapidly. More frequently, I should say. Looks like he was just speeding up there, which was interesting. But yeah, still nothing too special there. Alright, and I'm not going to get any power-ups here. No barrier. Alright. Let's go after those turrets again. Oh, that's... Oh, I got lucky again. Oh, that's crazy. Okay. Alright, there we go. There's one. That's two. That's three. And that's four. Woo, this is definitely doing a number on my right hand. It's definitely doing a number. I have to actually kind of like pace myself a little bit better with this button mashing. Now, I did have a heart procedure done on me, which involved installing a stent in one of my arteries, and so they went in through my wrist on the right-hand side, which is my button mashing side. And as of doing this video, it was a week ago they did that, so it's still very bruised. There's still, my hand has not fully recovered yet. So I'm also doing all this button mashing in that sort of state. I feel fine, but it's the, you know, my wrist is just, yeah, it's struggling a little more than it normally would. Let's just come on over to the right-hand side. Go ahead and hit that, activate those, and then come on up. We'll take the left-hand side this time. Taking a specific side doesn't really matter in this game. They're not really... It's not like one is a lot more difficult than another, so... But yeah, that was kind of my fault for dying there. I was just mashing the button like crazy when I could have actually technically, you know, triggered that whenever I wanted. I triggered it way too early, and so I ended up just, you know, dying there, which is a bummer. You just shoot the ceiling and then they fall down. That's it. This is arguably the slowest part of the game. And it's not even arguably, it definitely is the slowest part of the game, objectively. So, you have a lot of downtime in this section. Can maybe get a little boring for people like me. People like me that need to be constantly killing things in these old video games. People like me play games like these because we like the constant action. We like that constant dopamine hit. Which is why it actually takes me a little while sometimes to get into things like RPGs, because it really forces me to change my mindset about how I experience video games. Now, I don't look at myself as like the most amazing player out there or anything like that, not even close. But I do recognize that I just prefer fast-paced stuff more to slow-paced stuff. Gets the adrenaline going. It just, I don't know. They're the types of games that make me happy as I'm playing them, basically. So, and when there's a lot of downtime, I get bored. So, yeah. Alright, I'm gonna come to the right, since it starts on the right. Oh, that's not good? Okay, good, we got it. Nice. Gotta squeeze down here. Yep. That's exactly what I wanted to try last time. Pretty simple boss concept, but I've always enjoyed this boss. For one, I like the animation of the turrets, how they come down. It's a really simple effect, I think, but it works really well. It's smooth. It's a smooth effect. Super C on NES is it's a fantastic game. I mean, I don't really think I need to sing its praises all that much, because all you have to do is just look at it and be like, yeah, that's a pretty sweet game, even if I've never played it. It's like, it looks great, it sounds great, it's got an awesome soundtrack, the gameplay is super tight. That's another thing about these, the first two Contra games on NES, is they are indeed very, very tight games. They play well, the hitboxes are good. You know, they're just great games. Well designed. Even all these years later. Extra life. Got the jingle. Nice. Oh, that was just mean, game. Come on. That guy just headbutted me. That's cheating. That's okay, we got this. Alright, we're gonna have those purple falling rocks again. Just push the screen all the way up if we can. Okay, we're good. I'm actually kind of surprised there aren't more falling rocks on the higher difficulty. Ooh, I thought I was going to be able to destroy that guy before it shoots, but I did not. I'm going to shoot downwards like this. I'm going to go this way. Just get behind the turret, why not? Alright, boss time again. Now this is going to be quite tricky with just the pea shooter. So I think what I want to do is try to focus on the projectiles and little enemies he shoots out. That is boss, and actually the next boss too. Well, not the next boss. The boss after. It's going to be a legitimate challenge with just the rifle. Now, interestingly, in the arcade version of this game, this boss right here, he's actually just a mini-boss. He actually appears in one of the latest levels. I think the second and last level. The final side-scrolling level he appears in as a mini-boss. And you take him down in like 1 or 2 seconds with the spread shot. Not the spread shot, it's actually, I use a very different strategy in Super Contra Arcade. So one mechanic that was not carried over into this version, well, mostly wasn't carried over into this version, is grabbing the same weapon again. Grabbing the same weapon again in this pretty much does nothing. Actually, if you have the rapid shot, it actually downgrades your shot back to its regular shot speed, which is not ideal. Whoa! I did not see that bullet. It's just like it appeared out of nowhere. Ooh, you know what it was? I think it was the flicker. There was a lot going on, and so I did not see the bullet because of flicker. It's okay. I'm losing a few lives. It's expected. This is probably the hardest level in the game with just your regular pea shooter. But yeah, in Super C, the arcade game, or Super Contra, the arcade game, if you pick up the same weapon twice, it actually upgrades to a higher level version of it. So, the machine gun in that game is basically like a rapid missile launcher. It, like, doubles or triples its shot rate. It is insane, and it becomes basically the best weapon in the game. So, you don't have that luxury in this game. Alright, boss time. This is going to be a little tricky with just this weapon. Nice. Alright, first phase down. But I did want to mention, if you grab the fire weapon in this game twice, it does actually upgrade slightly. the fire weapon in this, you can actually hold down the shot button, then release it. You'll actually release a larger shot that has bigger spread damage. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I don't think that actually upgrades in this. I know. I'm actually mistaking the mechanic, the charge mechanic. You can just charge in this. You don't even need to upgrade your weapon a second time. I'm an idiot. That's one thing about doing these videos on the fly, improvise, is like, sometimes I forget what I've actually talked about already, and conflating ideas with mechanics from other games, and thinking they're in the game I'm actually playing, but they're actually not, and whew. The pressure of actually having to perform better now and actually think about what I'm doing probably isn't helping things either. This is going to be actually difficult because of that. I had a feeling that was going to happen. We'll just come on down here then. Yeah, those parts where you're basically just stuck against a corner. That's rough. Now, there are some games where if you get stuck in a corner like that, and you've got constantly respawning enemies, the enemies will stop respawning on that side of the screen if you're just stuck against it. Because it is kind of unfair. Super C, on the other hand, just does not care. It's like, no, we're still going to spawn them, and you're not going to be able to shoot them because you're just too close to that edge of the screen. And so it's pretty much guaranteed death. Alright, we definitely want to take these guys out diagonally if we can, as much as possible. Oh, we're probably going to end up dying on the last couple sets. Yeah, you know what? This is actually really interesting. The rifle-only challenge in this game is definitely more difficult than the first Contra. I've gotten through the first Contra rifle-only, like, really without any issue. But this definitely has some more difficult, tricky situations you've got to watch out for. Oh, and they go out at different rates and different heights. That actually makes it way more difficult. That's really, really hard to read. Oh, and again. Oh, and you know what? The way they come out... No, I was gonna say the way they come out might be based on distance, but it doesn't look like it is. I think it's just random. We're just gonna shoot upwards. Hope that these guys go overhead so I can just duck. That is one thing you can do in the arcade game. Ooh, I thought I could actually shoot right, then shoot left on the ground, but that completely backfired. Okay, this is a bad loop. See, now that I'm no longer centered, these projectiles are becoming a lot more wild. These boss projectiles. We still got it. Woo, that was rough. I think we're gonna get it overall as a playthrough, but I've actually died a lot more times than I expected to. Yeah, this is a lot more challenging. Doing rifle only. Now, if I still had spread shot, I would have wrecked through this second loop, just like I wrecked through the first one. But, yeah, the rifle makes all the difference. I'm gonna get rid of this mouth turret first before I trigger the big turret guy down below. Here we go. That's one. I love the shifting colors in the background. Very simple effect, but it works. Works quite well. Whoa, that was close. Thought I was gonna land right on that alien. Alright, last stretch, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, what we'll do is just wait. Just like that. And I think that's it. Ooh, that was close. Another thing you could do there is just wait before jumping. Wait for an alien to come out, shoot the alien, then chances are it won't spawn in for at least another second or two, giving you enough time to jump over that gap. I don't think any are going to spawn in on this final boss, but I'm going to keep shooting to the left just to be safe. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything is happening. Alright, same strategy as before. That's it. And we just beat Super C a second time. Harder loop with rifle only. That was definitely a lot more rough than our first playthrough, and it actually did take us a tiny bit longer. A little over 25 minutes. It was about 27, 28 minutes. Not that much longer, actually. But that was pretty fun. I was definitely kind of a little wiped out there in that second playthrough, having to do all that button mashing with a only mildly functioning right hand and right wrist. My thumb is actually really hurting right now, and my thumb never hurts when I mash buttons on NES controllers because I'm so used to it. The NES controller is one of the best for button mashing because of how responsive the buttons are. The way they just pop right back up, and then you can just push them down immediately. It's got this nice, like, snappy, tactile feeling. They're so good for that. So, but yeah. That is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed these two playthroughs. If you stuck it out this long, definitely drop a comment down below. Let me know, especially what you thought of the second loop. That would be really cool. But yeah, we still have 8 lives. Now the game will just keep going on infinitely, but we are not going to play anymore. This is going to do it for us in Super C on the NES. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, as usual, post them down below. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I've got a lot of videos like this and many more to come. If you have any suggestions on videos that you'd like to see in this format, do also let me know. I don't know if I will be able to do them, but you know, I definitely want to get a better idea of what people actually want to see. This last year in particular on this channel, I've mainly just been winging it, just kind of doing random stuff, intentionally trying to, you know, get outside my comfort zone and learn new games. But as I get older, that becomes more and more difficult to do on a regular basis. And so a lot of these more recent videos in particular, I've been jumping into old games I already know that I don't really ever need practice on, like Super C and Battletoads and whatnot. I binged a lot of the Mega Man games during November and lots of Castlevania during October, and a lot of those games are games I already know as well, so playing it very safe. But if you have anything, any ideas or suggestions, games that you'd like to see, I can jot them down on a list and you know, see if I can eventually get to them. But yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thanks again for watching. Don't really have anything else to say, so, you know, for all of you already subbed, thank you for your continued support. I really appreciate it. And I guess until the next one, take it easy.